In El Dorado Estates, a retired firefighter completes a suicide, and his family is in complete shock. In North Long Beach, parents are hysterical after their child drowns in a pool during a family party. On 28th, a dad has a heart attack while playing in the yard with his kids. In an apartment off Linden, a man wakes up to find that his wife of 52 years died during the night. Out on Queensway Drive, a commercial truck driver is rattled after accidentally hitting and killing a transient pedestrian. Witnesses and victims are stunned as a boat catches fire in Alamitos Bay and explodes. On Ocean Avenue, a man is stabbed during a home invasion in his beachfront condo. He's in the ER while his wife is across the country for work. On Atlantic Avenue, a young boy suffers a seizure in front of classmates and staff. They are afraid and upset. A woman and her passenger are driving down Studebaker, and the car flips just before Loins. The family shows up and is confused because all they hear is that one person died and one person was transported to the hospital. Which one was their daughter? What do all of these tragedies have in common? A TIP volunteer was there. My name is Chrissy with the Trauma Intervention Program of Long Beach, or TIP. Volunteers for TIP are a group of specially trained and vetted individuals who provide emotional and practical support to survivors in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy. Each event that I just referred to occurred within the last 18 months. Trauma develops when a person experiences something harmful or threatening, and it has long-term effects on their well-being. It can affect people of any age, gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, and as you heard from me just now, zip code is no indicator of proximity to trauma. So how does TIP work? First responders and hospital personnel request TIP to a scene through a dispatch system. There's a volunteer on call at all times, which is how we are able to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Responder feedback has told us that having a TIP volunteer with the survivor or survivors allows them to focus on their jobs while knowing that those individuals are cared for. TIP has been called out for natural or unexpected deaths, attempted or completed suicides, drownings, home invasions, witnesses to a crime, victims of violent attacks, sexual assaults, heart attack or stroke, and even infant or maternal deaths. Any situation where a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, nurse, or hospital social worker recognizes the need for our assistance, we will show up. The system is specifically in place for police, fire, and the hospitals that we're contracted with. The program and the services are not available to be requested by the general public. Trauma Intervention Program is a national nonprofit with 15 affiliates across the United States. TIP of Long Beach became an affiliate in November of 2021. For the first 2 years, we responded exclusively to calls from Long Beach Police Department while we learned our capabilities. We recently expanded our care to Long Beach Fire and several local hospitals. Since the time that we have served Long Beach, TIP has responded to over 650 calls. Since January of this year, and now it's October, we've been to 212 scenes and cared for over 1,100 clients and survivors. In 1985, a group of mental health professionals, including our founder, Wayne Fortin, identified a problem, and developed TIP as a response to it. The problem had two parts. One, survivors often have inadequate support in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy. Emergency responders are busy, and family members and friends often don't know what to say or do. And two, when survivors don't have support, they often suffer a second injury, which is the perception that they did not receive help in their time of need. Think, why did they leave me alone? The second injury is a serious mental health problem, and the effects can last a lifetime. TIP is a solution. TIP volunteers provide the temporary support that survivors need and provide what we call emotional first aid. The volunteers' presence often prevents second injuries and assists in long-term recovery. Volunteers provide a caring presence and can hold space until family and friends arrive. Training teaches volunteers ways to connect and establish a supportive, non-judgmental relationship with a stranger for 3 to 4 hours. Just being there is powerful. Volunteers protect their clients from harm, whether it be gruesome sights, insensitive sounds, or even their own thoughts. We also provide a curated guide to local resources. My biggest concern when I began the training academy was, how am I going to handle carrying all this trauma? Will I be haunted by the calls that I respond to? Extensive training equipped me and other volunteers to leave ourselves in the car. This is not our tragedy. Those mantras, we internalize them, and they help us to safeguard ourselves from taking on the trauma of others. TIP also has a debriefing system in place for all volunteers, where a few days after their encounter, or sooner if they require, there's a call between the volunteer and a debriefer where they can talk through their whole experience and then gently set it down. TIP volunteers are taught about the limits of our assistance as well. We don't give advice. We are there to empower our survivor to be able to regain a sense of control. We don't pray with survivors. To respect all spiritual preferences, we don't engage in prayers. In hospitals, there are chaplains who take the spiritual lead. We will witness and support. We will hold a hand, and we will silently respect our survivors. TIP volunteers don't deliver death notifications. We don't confirm deaths, but we try to coordinate with the officer or the coroner, medical examiner, doctor on that scene so that we can be right there to support someone after they receive that news. We don't transport. We do our best to coordinate transportation if necessary, but our volunteers don't drive anyone anywhere. We don't get in the way. Our effort is to be that caring presence for our survivors, but to also help allow the professionals to focus on their jobs. We don't counsel. We listen, we reassure, and we organize. We don't interact with the media, and we make sure that our survivors know that it's their right to not interact with the media as well. We don't share personal or medical information. We can act as a liaison between our survivor and the responders or coroner or the doctor and communicate when they are looking for answers, but we don't relay that information. We're always looking for individuals who feel like TIP might be a good fit for them. 2 to 3 times a year, we offer our National Training Academy. The training process has been standardized so that anyone, volunteering with any affiliate across the U.S. will be learning the same skills and processes. Our volunteers must be over the age of 18 and complete every session of the training academy. They then enter a 3-month mentored field training period after passing a thorough background check and being live scanned. We ask for a commitment of 1 year through our volunteer agreement, which includes a HIPAA contract. Some do their year and move on, which is something that's common for college or graduate students, and others choose to remain and maintain an active status. Volunteers agree to be on call for 3 12-hour shifts per month, 7 to 7, a.m. or p.m., and to attend monthly continuing education meetings. The Trauma Intervention Program training process is incredibly thorough. Academies are led by nationally certified trainers. The first week focuses intensely on the emotional first aid skills. We learn the difference between caring and curing, identifying the immediate needs of our survivors in those first few hours. Trainees dive into the concept of second injury and the long-term impacts on survivors. The second week of the academy focuses on learning to work within the emergency response system and understanding the scope of our reach within the parameters of the agencies that we are partnered with. TIP training includes guest speakers to hear the survivors, the volunteers, and the responders' perspectives. We role-play different scenarios to help prepare the volunteer for what they'll encounter. That curated resource guide is provided on almost every call. It includes ways to talk to children about death, how to care for yourself in the aftermath of a trauma, and signs to look for that indicate the need for more help. There are also practical resources included: local mortuary and cremation services, grief and family counselors, child therapists, support groups. There are also board up and cleanup services included, as well as religious and cultural support. A portion of our guide has been translated into Spanish. It is one of our priority goals to have it translated into Khmer and Tagalog as well, to better support our Cambodian and Filipino neighbors. Survivors can also access other printable resources via our website. We're fortunate to have a few bilingual volunteers, but we are always hoping for more. The anatomy of a tip call is one of the exercises that we do in training, and it looks something like this. A Long Beach Fire Department dispatcher calls TIP to request a volunteer. An on-call TIP volunteer is dispatched to a scene, and they typically arrive within 20 to 25 minutes. Once on scene, the Long Beach Fire Department contact briefs the TIP volunteer and introduces them to the survivor. The volunteer remains on scene with the survivor until the call ends, typically when the decedent is taken into the care of the mortuary or the coroner. And in a few days, our volunteer follows up with the survivor. These are short-term relationships. Our volunteers provide acute care. The needs of someone who has experienced a traumatic incident are different in the immediate aftermath versus a few hours or even days later. A key step to learning emotional first aid is unlearning so many of the common sense impulses that we have become accustomed to. So many of us are well-intentioned in our effort to fix a problem or to make someone better. In the first few hours after a tragic event, the survivor is often surrounded by people who have a job to do or who have opinions about what the survivor should or shouldn't do. The primary goal of the person providing emotional first aid is to enable the survivor to act according to their wishes, values, and beliefs, and not according to what someone else thinks should be done. The volunteers who arrive on a scene don't try to pull an individual out of the pit. They climb into the pit and get down next to them. The feedback that we receive from survivors often comes months later. They may not remember the name of the person who came to be with them, but they do remember that on one of the worst days of their lives, they were not alone. I am so thankful to be able to share TIP with you. Our small band of volunteers are people that I am grateful to know and to learn from. There is a sincere humility that comes with being able to share sacred spaces with those who have suffered so greatly, bearing witness to their pain, and walking with or sitting with them in it. It fills me with a type of gratitude that I was unfamiliar with before. I invite you to visit our website and learn more about our program and to register for our next training academy. If volunteering isn't feasible for you, there are many other ways that you can support our mission to serve our city. Thank you for being here with me and for the generosity of your time. I am so thankful to be able to share TIP with you. Our small band of volunteers are people that